At this time, and so we thank them very, very much for all that hard work as well. So thank you. And what we're going to do right now while you're reading, we're going to ask both Ron and Arvo to come on up and tell a little bit about their stories and talk about the concept of being an enabler and really not being an enabler. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Ron Rosetto first, and I think he'll bring up Arvo. And so thank you very much, Ron.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully that'll work. Since I'm not a professional speaker like Manny, I'm just going to read from my notes. But Jim had asked me to say a few words, or at least speak 10, 15 minutes, about our story. And, unfortunately, I lost my son, Mark, about 4 years ago of an overdose from heroin. And, just like any other parent, a lot of the professionals here understand probably what I'm going to read, but a lot of the family members, maybe there's something that I'm going to say that could ring true, especially about the enabling part. So, my story basically began about 4 years ago after the loss of my son from a heroin overdose. And again, more unfortunate situation. I had two sons that were both addicts at the time. Fortunately, my one son is clean now for 9 years, and he was also a heroin addict. My son had passed away at home. Unfortunately, his mother found him. He was in the bathroom. I was in Florida at the time, and I received a call, very much like that film, the video that we saw when the father was talking to, the little boy about, giving the news. Unfortunately, I heard it, over a telephone, and I was in Florida. When your knees just collapse, and, I said the same thing that the little boy did. I said, my son, Mark, are you sure? So it's something that, all of us, unfortunately, there's no family that's not affected by this disease today. My son started experimenting with drugs probably at 14, 15 years old, and like most parents, we had absolutely no clue. Before that, they were active in sports, school. They were good kids. I watched them go from jocks to total disinterest in school, work, sports, laying around on the couch like couch potatoes, just wondering what's going on. Unfortunately, as a parent, finding out that your children are on drugs is the worst nightmare. You go through denial, fear, total loss of control, which is something that I'm not used to being in my own business. Every day we handle problems, and every day, by the end of the day, hopefully you fix most of them. In this problem, there was no quick fix, and it was also something that I learned that you couldn't deal with this alone. So you needed a support system, and that took some time to develop a support system. We struggled with two of my sons, probably over a 15-year period. I had to learn that if an addict didn't want help, you really weren't going to convince them to get help. And that's when the enabling starts. Because as a parent, it's your son or your daughter, you love them, you want to do everything you can to try to help them, and you end up going through your savings account, you end up refinancing your home, you do whatever you have to do to try to help, your child. And it affects the entire family and destroys everything in its path. And as a parent, we just have no place to turn, and you feel totally alone. You begin searching websites, you try to find local services, and at the time when we were going through it, today you have more resources than you did a number of years ago. So you keep hitting blind roads, you put your son or daughter into a detox, you send them away to a rehab, and you find out the rehab wasn't such a great rehab. You end up bringing them home, and you just continue to go through the cycle, and it's the worst nightmare. It's hard to explain, unfortunately, unless you live through it. For us, the addiction started with pot, then pills, and then eventually heroin, because heroin was so cheap, it was like $5 a bag. And I remember, I'll time, the first time I found heroin in my son's car, it was in a wrapper, and the one side of the wrapper had a picture of bin Laden's face. This was around 2000, right, after 9/11. And the other side was a photograph of the World Trade Center. Now, if that's not a smack in the face, I don't know what is. And back then, that's when the heroin was coming in through Afghanistan. Today, I think mostly it's from Mexico and Colombia. That's what the prosecutor's office tells me. So anyway, you go through the problems, things get worse. You end up having trouble with the law. They end up getting into auto accidents. They get arrested because they're finding paraphernalia and drugs in the car. Then they start to steal from their parents, their grandparents, their neighbors, just so that they can purchase drugs to support their habit. Then what happens is they get arrested, there's time in jail, and then they get a record. And then the difficulty getting a job because they have a record, and the anxiety begins. We went through years of them going through probation, getting fines, getting more fines, not being able to get a job to pay for the fines, back in jail again. It was just, the system's broken. So again, as a parent, you can try to do whatever you can to help your children. And just like I said before, you go through all your money, all your finances, and it's just a terrible path. But finally, or at least for some, you wake up and you just stop enabling. And that's what we did. I finally said, that's it, enough. I'm changing the locks on the house. You're not allowed in the home anymore. And basically, I don't even want to know you. Now, for somebody that doesn't have a child that's an addict, that's a hard thing to say. It sounds crazy, but unless you do that, you're not going to protect yourself and you're not going to protect your family. And that's what we had to do. It was tough love. Unfortunately, my oldest son didn't make it because he was kind of a wise guy. He thought, I got this, I know what I'm doing, and he overdosed on heroin. My younger son was more of, the type of kid that, all right, I'm going to go for help. I'll go to detox, I'll go to rehab, and he went through that. And mainly because I locked him out of the house and told him I want nothing to do with you. And he'll tell some of my friends a story today that my father really saved my life because I knew he was the last guy in the world that would really help me. And with him gone, there were two things that were going to happen to me. I'm either going to get healthy, go through rehab, get my recovery, or I'm going to die. He chose to get recovery. And, today, thank God, he's 9 years clean with a career, a family. I have 2 grandchildren, 5 and 3. So, there is hope. And that's the good part of it. But the enabling is really the hardest thing to do for any parent. I didn't understand at the time that it was truly a disease. I mean, I do now, but I just didn't get it. And, you blame it on yourself, you blame it on them, you blame it on other people, but it's truly a disease. And, I listened to Manny, and so many of the things that he said were really true. I took notes, I learned a few things, and every day you continue to learn. But that's the problem that the public doesn't understand. And I wish the politicians and some of the pharmaceutical companies could get more in line, but that's another story. My last words to my son, Mark, he was in my office, and I could tell that he was high. So, I looked at him and said, look, you came here to do a little bit of work for me because I was basically putting him under my wing. I wanted him to at least keep himself busy. It was close to probation. So even though I just said I wasn't enabling, I was just trying to make life a little bit easier for him under the circumstances. And of course he looked at me and said, well, what are you talking about? I'm not high. When an addict opens their mouth, it's a lie. So my last words to him were me scolding him and him looking at me, with disgust. And I remember him turning the door on the doorknob and walking out, and that was the last time I saw him. But, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and, after he passed away, we actually had the services here at this church. And it's really funny how things just go in a full circle. You know, recently, Hope Sheds Light now has a new home, you know, back here, the House of Hope. So, you know, 4 years later, we're right back where we started, where we were having these services, you know. So sometimes it's just amazing. I guess things are meant to be, and I find that to be, you know, an interesting story. But recently with Hope, you know, and I have to compliment Arvo, Prima with the idea of focusing, you know, more on the families. We're having family meetings now twice a month. We were having them once a month, and the first time we had a meeting, probably 85 or 100 people showed up. So no, that's been consistent every single month. You know, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to my partner, Arvo, who's been with Hope Sheds Light, obviously, from the beginning, and a co-founder with me to talk more about the family component. Thank you.
Hopefully I don't ruin your lunch. My story is a little different, although it's the same. I'm going to speak a little bit more from my journey, where I started, and where I am today, just to give you a sense from a father's eyes, actually in my case from a son's eyes, of what addiction looked like. So my journey started when I was about 12 years old. My mom was an alcoholic addict, and through the age of 12 to maybe 6 or 7 years later, when she finally found recovery, I was home with a mom, a brother that was rarely home, and a dad that seemed like he was always working. So there I was, 12 years old, watching somebody that I loved more than life, always crying, sleeping, constantly apologizing, and just trying to keep it together. And then when my dad finally did get home, there was always fighting, and the yelling and the screaming, and until finally she went to bed and he read Time magazine. And here I was wondering, you know, what is it? What can I do here? So I figured that my job would be to get her to stop using and to try to manage the house, and from, you know, the outside perspective, make everything look as normal as it could. So I remember, you know, I was writing this today, even though it's my story. I used to look into plants in the cabinets and find vodka bottles, empty them and fill them with water, like that was going to be the answer. And I would do a load of laundry, try to get something, you know, cooked, so, you know, there could be some resemblance of a normal life. And I remember looking in the backyard, and I used to see my mom's car back there, and I would say to my dad, "Why is her car in the backyard?" And he said, "Well, we had a fight last night, and she said she was leaving." So literally, she would drive around the back of the house and sleep in the car. So, you know, can you imagine at a 14, 15-year-old age, you're dealing with everything else in your life, and from the outside, this mess on the inside. And, you know, I think, you know, they call me a codependent, and actually my sponsor calls me a global codependent. Like I have a cape and everything. And I wonder where that all came from, and now I know why. Because, you know, at a young age, I was kind of programmed that, wow, this uncontrollable disease maybe could be controlled. And you know, obviously I learned a lot about that later on. So, later on in life, I have 3 children. My middle boy, junior in high school, varsity sports player, 2 sports, smart kid, started to change. And at first, you know, I'm old school, so I'm like, he's just being a boy, and he's growing, and get off his case, he'll get through all this. And unfortunately, that wasn't what it was. It seemed like the longer it went on, the worse it got. And I remember like it was yesterday, that he got accepted to Penn State. He got a couple scholarships for soccer. And we drove him to Penn State. He even like picked his course line. And like this was his So in my head, I'm like, okay, here's Penn State. Here's music. There's no chance that he's going to sacrifice this dream for this. Well, I can tell you that that was my dream, not his. So at graduation, he literally tripped over the finish line. And you know what happens as a good family and a good parent? You don't know that it's enabling, but you just start to fix, manage, pay, clean up all the devastation and crap they cause in this crazy disease. So I remember driving home from Penn State going, you know what? This is a good day because he's going to really see what's in front of him. Well, it didn't happen. He went to his first rehab, and I remember, dropping him off, and you'd like forget it, like trying to keep it together. But they said, your insurance just isn't clearing. We can't take him. Now, you can imagine the emotions just accepting that there's an issue, having him accepting that there could be an issue, and then finally getting to the place where you think it's all going to work out, and you can't get in. So, I ran to the truck and got my checkbook, and I would have wrote whatever check I needed to write. And not that it was a bad or good thing. I'm not saying it for any reason. Not that they were doing anything wrong. But I can tell you that if they're not doing the right thing, you're very vulnerable to a point where it's not even fair. So I dropped them off, and it was suggested that we seek maybe some family, a family program. And I even remember then being so angry. I'm like, well, if this jerk would just stop, I would be happy as could be. Why do I got to do any work? Like, I got nothing wrong with me. I'm doing the right thing here. Well, that really wasn't the deal either. So, as I discovered, I'm going to read a couple of these things so I kind of stay on point. My codependency issues that I need to work through needed to happen before any recovery would happen for him. And I think because it was presented to me that way, I accepted the fact that I'm willing to do the work. 7 years later, here I am in front of you. I learned about enabling an addiction, that it's a disease, and you absolutely, positively can't do it alone. And I have my own business, and like Ronnie said, any problem that we have, we take care of by the end of the day. If not, we'll work Saturdays and Sundays. Well, guess what? You can work 7 days a week, 24/7. And if you have an addict in your life that isn't willing to find recovery, you'll die before he does, or she, or her, or them. I don't know. So today I realize that recovery is a lifetime process. It's not a 30-day program, 90-day program. It's not 1 year, it's 2 years. It's a lifetime. Things have to change. And I also learned that my son's disease, they call this the 3 C's. I didn't cause it, I can't control it, and I can't cure it. So then what do I do? What do I do? So I figure out how I can live with this, regardless whether he's in recovery or not. How do I function every day as a businessman, as a father, as a husband? I have 2 other children that have great success and great joy, and I wasn't present for them because I was chasing after this ass that I was going to fix, that I love with every being of my life. And today, because we have a program of recovery, we can talk about it. And they'll say, Dad, you got to let him go. You got to let him figure it out. So when your 28-year-old daughter tells you that, wow, it's pretty powerful stuff, right? So from this experience that I've lived, a different man emerged, me. So today I'm a little more self-aware, a little less judgmental. I check my ego every day. I understand that happiness is an inside job. And I want to tell my story to you. So maybe you won't be afraid to tell your story. As far as my son, he's still trying to figure it out. But with the help of God, my program, my sponsor, and the recovery network, I got a shot. I got a shot to be reasonably happy. Because you know, when you have somebody sick that you love that much, you always you can hang out there all day long, you can hang out there for 10 minutes, or you can just give your life to it. And guess what? If that was the deal, if I could give my life to it and he would get better, I'm in. But I'm telling you, that's not the deal. It's not the deal. I think the most important thing that I can take from this, and maybe if my story resonates with anybody here, you can't be alone. You just can't be. And if you share the problem, maybe they cut it in half. If you share joy, maybe it will double. But I can tell you that hope sheds light in these gentlemen that we have in our new ED, John. We have family meetings. We have a great Facebook page. We have real-time information every day. And people, it's almost like a chat line. People are talking and sending us information. And it really helps regardless of where you are. Whether you're in the beginning of this process, whether you're in the middle, or it's just an ongoing thing. Addiction is a disease. And it doesn't care how much money you have, where you live, what color you are. It doesn't. So take from this that when you do see it, reach out, and we'll be there to help you. Because you know what? We love you.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Arvo. Very powerful stories. That's what this is about today, understanding families, understanding disease. So, we have a few more minutes before our next sessions begin at 12:45.